fights of all time, in every fight that's ever happened. But you look at those two separately, and you know, it wasn't their night tonight, and it wasn't an exciting fight.
I thought I would win against Anthony, but here I am with a broken jaw, learning the hard way. I'll heal.
Because what just happened, what you just saw was, yes, Jake Paul finding out there's levels to this game. Yes, Anthony Joshua not having the greatest performance of all time, but him doing exactly what he had to do, what he needed to do for boxing, what he needed to do for himself.
The internet erupted the moment Jake Paul hit the canvas in his long-anticipated clash with Anthony Joshua. All eyes instantly shifted to Dana White. The UFC boss, who has spent years publicly dismissing Paul as a manufactured boxer, didn't need to throw a punch himself. His reaction spoke volumes, from a knowing smirk to blunt, no-nonsense comments. White seemed vindicated as the reality of elite heavyweight power collided with YouTube hype, turning Jake Paul's bravado into a brutal lesson witnessed by millions.
Popping that calf kick, you know, the whole first round, he couldn't have had a better first round, and then he got caught.
Do you feel it's one of those things where, like, he got caught, or is it one of those things where Hangman age might be catching up to him, he might be slowing down? Which one do you think it could be?
Since Anthony Joshua brutally stopped Jake Paul in the 6th round of their heavyweight showdown, sending him to the hospital with a broken jaw and multiple fractures, the combat sports world hasn't stopped buzzing. Paul's injury was serious enough that he required surgery, including titanium plates and teeth removal, following the fight.
Thinking, for my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed. Yeah. And with the punch you said that he landed, it's not his best punch, his most powerful punch, right? Yep. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you said.
It wasn't a fight.
No, it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding in the side of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his...
Yeah, it's a professional boxing match.
Do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying, I don't want that on my record. But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, no, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight. And, I found it... I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like...
Beat Jake Paul.
Well, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, beat Jake Paul. But so
but what I'm saying is that that's 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that.
But I think when I was reading, he got 5.6 or...
Scans and x-rays revealed that Jake Paul's jaw was broken in 2 separate places, a severe injury, often called a double fracture. After the fight, Paul drove himself to a hospital for treatment, where doctors confirmed the diagnosis. Recovery was expected to take around 4 to 6 weeks, and Paul shared images of the scans on social media, confirming the fractures and thanking fans for their support during his recuperation. UFC President Dana White had long dismissed the matchup as a bad idea, suggesting from the start that Paul was out of his depth against a decorated former heavyweight champion, and many viewed Joshua's knockout as validating that perspective. White even joked that the fight's appeal came from fans wanting to see Paul eventually get stopped, emphasizing his long-standing skepticism about Paul's viability at the highest levels of boxing.
Oh, Jesus. That's a fucking bad idea. That's a bad idea. But let me tell you what. A lot of people will watch that one.
Will you watch it?
Sure. You know what everybody's tuning in for on that one. I think everybody's going to get what...
Analysts are now calling the entire build-up an aftermath of Tom and Jerry-style spectacle, arguing the outcome was inevitable from the moment the fight was announced. According to several boxing insiders, Jake Paul spent months playing the loud, cartoonish provocateur, while Anthony Joshua remained silent, calculated, and patient, like a predator waiting for the punchline. When the bell rang, the comedy ended quickly. Joshua's power, timing, and ring IQ utterly overwhelmed Paul, resulting in a knockout that shocked casual fans, but left serious analysts unsurprised.
Oh man, great performance by Jake, brother.
Come on, bro. He's a fucking legend for that. He has such big balls getting in the ring with that guy, dude. Josh was a monster. He stayed in it the whole time, and I'm really proud of Jake, dude. All my respect to him, bro. Whatever outcome. I mean, dude, he went 6.5 rounds with Anthony Joshua, one of the best in the world. So I got nothing but respect.
And got up like 2 times.
No, it was sick.
Talk about that. I mean, there's been other heavyweights that have felt that right hand who haven't got up.
Nagano, so many people, bro. The overhand right. Jake's got a tough chin, dude. I think he does whatever he wants after this. He just has such big balls, dude. He had to keep moving. That was the only strategy. People are gonna say he ran around the ring. They don't know. They don't understand fucking boxing.
He showed a ton of heart, right? Ton of heart. What's next for Jake Paul?
Legendary trainer Teddy Atlas surprised many boxing fans by outlining a potential path for Jake Paul to upset Anthony Joshua, even if it seemed unlikely on paper. Atlas stressed that styles make fights, suggesting Paul could use his youth, quicker feet, and constant movement to frustrate Joshua, particularly if Joshua's timing or mindset lagged after a long layoff or past losses. Atlas explained that Paul might run, employ lateral movement, and exploit a surprise right hand whenever Joshua overcommits, noting that slipping rounds and keeping Joshua off balance could be enough to steal an 8-round bout. It wouldn't be elegant, but Atlas views a tactical, evasive game plan as Paul's best chance at shocking victory.
I do want to talk about news that broke out, and it's someone that you've always shown respect to, and I've asked you these questions before about Jake Paul. We had a surprise announcement just the other day about him and Anthony Joshua. What was your reaction when you saw that announcement? It shocked a lot of people in boxing. What did you make of that, or what do you make?
Jake hasn't made too many mistakes so far, so it got my attention. It got Teddy's attention. He's been growing. He's been growing in the ring. He's been growing outside the ring. He's been growing in confidence. I think that in the Canelo situation, that didn't happen. He was ready to do that. I think if anything else, if nothing else, he's showing you that he truly is believing in himself. And that, he's been a work in progress. He still is. And he's showing you, he's putting his money where his mouth is. Everyone's calling for him to do this, to do that. And, he's always had the advantage with guys that weren't real fighters. They were fighters. They were older fighters. They were MMA fighters. They were this, they were that. They were smaller. They were older. Now he's taking a guy that's bigger, older, but bigger. A real, can't debate if he's a fighter. 2-time heavyweight champ. Coming off, but he's a smart son of a gun. He's a gutsy son of a... I always stood up for him because everyone was saying he was hurting the sport. He wasn't hurting the sport. In some ways, he was bringing interest in a different way to the sport. But
The bout, officially promoted as Judgment Day, was scheduled for 8 3-minute rounds in the heavyweight division, with Anthony Joshua entering as a heavy favorite thanks to his experience, height of 6 feet 6 inches, and significant size advantage over Jake Paul, who weighed roughly 216 pounds compared to Joshua's 243 pounds. After several tentative early rounds, Joshua began asserting control, dropping Paul multiple times in the 5th round before finishing the fight with a devastating knockout early in the 6th at 131, landing a crushing right hand that sent Paul to the canvas and forced the referee to stop the bout.
Anthony Joshua. Paul was sturdy for the first couple of rounds, but as the fight went on, the more experienced Joshua began to take control. After continuously connecting in the 5th round, it was only a matter of time before it was over. In the 6th, Joshua went on to knock out Paul with a big right hand. Joshua improved his career record to 29-4 now. Paul loses for the 2nd time in his career to go along with 12.
Former UFC champion Daniel Cormier, who had openly expressed skepticism before the bout, stated that there was never a realistic chance for Jake Paul to beat Joshua, though he acknowledged Paul's toughness in reaching the later rounds. Cormier noted that Anthony Joshua carried Jake Paul to the 6th round, and that the fight was always going to end with a punch, as Paul simply wasn't at Joshua's level. He explained that Joshua ultimately landed the clean, fight-ending right hand because it was inevitable given the gap in skill and power, even though Paul showed heart by surviving multiple rounds before the knockout.
So, some people believe in fairy tales. Whoever believed that Jake Paul was going to win, that was an absolute fairy tale. I've got a friend in a group message that said, I just put $20 on Jake Paul to win. I was like, bro, you just wasted your money. There was never a world in which Jake Paul was going to beat Anthony Joshua. It was always a matter of how the fight would end. So I watched all the pundits talking about the fight, even Rosendo, my boxing coach. I was like, does Anthony Joshua represent boxing? Everybody from that world felt like Anthony Joshua was representing boxing. And as the fight started to go on, first off, he was representing boxing, so they wanted him to get the job done. All right, first and foremost. You can't lose to a guy that's perceived to be a YouTuber, even though today, Jake Paul is more boxer than YouTuber. I've said this time and time again. When you have resources, when you can spend $1 million a year on training camps, housing, food, coaches, this is not recreational anymore. He's a boxer. He's just not a boxer at that level. I ran into his brother in New York City. And I said to Logan, what parameters are in place, Logan? What safeguards do they have to make sure that Anthony Joshua doesn't hurt your brother? He said there are none. He goes, they're going to just straight fight. So in that regard, you got to give credit.
Logan Paul stirred debate after the fight by claiming his brother Jake may have won as many as 4 rounds before the knockout. Speaking emotionally afterward, Logan argued that Jake was competitive early, using movement and defense to avoid damage, while Anthony Joshua took time to find his rhythm. Though most official scorecards and analysts strongly disagreed, Logan insisted people were underrating how well Jake survived and snatched moments in the first half of the bout.
Logan, what's up, man? What's your reaction to it?
I'm just so proud of him. My mom has it.
Your brother fought his ass off, man.
Yeah,
I mean, other heavyweights have taken that right hand and only took one.
I'm just so proud of him. That was incredible. In my view, that was a victory on all fronts.
Right.
Like, minus the actual victory, of course, but bro, like, no one expected him to last 6 rounds with AJ. In my opinion, he won 4 of them. People will argue that he at least won 3. No one expected him to last that long. Rolled his ankle, broke his jaw, still fucking fighting, man. Like, that's toughness. You know, most people wouldn't have the balls ever to step in a boxing ring in their life. He stepped in a boxing ring with one of the baddest men on the planet, who's 40 pounds heavier than him and 6 inches taller. That's insane. He's one of the most skilled fighters on the planet. My brother, as a fucking YouTuber, went 6 rounds with him in a fight with a broken jaw and rolled ankle. I'm so proud of him. That was just unbelievable.
I saw you talking crap to AJ at one point.
I was trying to get his head. I think I pissed him off. I was just saying fuck that shit. I love AJ. But bro,
I saw you going down the fight game.
I was talking so much. But I just pissed him off. Then he
Former world champion Carl Froch didn't hold back his feelings about the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight, suggesting matchups like this have dragged boxing into what he calls clown world. Froch had previously criticized Joshua's choice to face a YouTube star instead of elite competitors, arguing it harms the sport and even dents Joshua's legacy, noting that fighting social media personalities doesn't reflect the true competitive standard expected of top heavyweights. While he didn't directly say, this fight was a disgrace, Froch's overall tone made it clear he views celebrity crossover bouts as damaging to boxing's credibility and tradition.
6 rounds, got Jake Paul out of there. Dropped him. I think he got stopped on his feet, counted out, knocked out, whatever, however you want to call it. It wasn't a bad knockout. It wasn't an El Sparko. He wasn't rendered unconscious, but he got done. He got it on the chin. He went over. He didn't beat the count. He was sort of up on his feet. But if I'm honest, the whole fight was terrible, wasn't it? It was just so bad. It was just shit, wasn't it? A proper bad fight for AJ. And let me start with AJ. AJ was following him around the ring a little bit, sort of pouring with the jab, putting the jab on the shoulder of Jake Paul, sort of putting him in the corner and not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. He didn't seem to be motivated to go in there and just smash Jake Paul into oblivion in the first 1 or 2 rounds, which I think he could have done. But he's been out of the ring 15 months. He's a bit slow on his feet, a bit ring rust maybe, and he was it's hard. When I used to spar novice amateurs, even when I was a world champion pro, if you're not motivated, sometimes you can have a couple of bad rounds and you're sort of looking at your opponent and a jab hits you or right hand hits you. And I think AJ was in a bit of a daze early on. Just walking him around, touching the jab on his shoulder, not really pulling the trigger on the right hand. Didn't look like he got out of first gear. Jake Paul was just on pure survival mode from round 1 right through to round 6. I don't know if he's got a moral victory going 6 rounds. Maybe he has. People might give him credit for going 6 rounds. But he got in there and just survived. He just went in there and ran like a chicken from round 1 right through to round 6 when he got splattered. And it's like, it's just, you can't really justify what he's done, because this is supposed to be a professional sanctioned boxing match, and I think it brings the integrity of the sport down when somebody like AJ, is a 2-time world champion, can't get in there and just completely dismiss somebody like Jake Paul, who I've said for ages can't fight.
Veteran boxing analyst Gareth A. Davies raises serious concerns about the safety implications of this fight. He highlights the significant weight difference and experience gap between the fighters, suggesting the matchup pushed the limits of what is safe in a professional ring. Davies emphasizes that a full-scale contest could be dangerous, especially if Joshua landed clean, decisive punches early. From his perspective, while the spectacle of a social media personality challenging a seasoned heavyweight is intriguing, the physical risks make it a highly questionable endeavor. Experts like Davies warn that regulatory bodies and promoters must carefully assess safety measures, as the consequences of a miscalculated bout could be severe for both competitors. Even though Anthony Joshua knocked out Jake Paul in the 6th round and broke his jaw, many respected figures in combat sports publicly acknowledge Paul's heart, courage, and performance.
I'm not going to be with a guy I know what subjects we're going over. So, as I am with you, there is a danger in this fight. The odds are, Joshua's 1-12, obviously. Jake Paul is 6-1, yeah, to win this fight in a 2-horse race, in which this is a guy who lost to Tommy Fury, Tyson Fury's brother, in an 8-round fight, who, for me, I wrote that it would damage his legacy a week ago. It will damage his legacy for several reasons. If the Deontay Wilder fight never emerges, which it looks like it isn't, I've been calling for that fight for ages. If those two got in a ring together, it's still a massive fight. It's a dangerous fight to sanction, in my view. It sets the wrong precedent. It is 10-ounce gloves. It is a boxing match. It's not an exhibition. This isn't a 58-year-old Mike Tyson. This is one of the most dangerous finishers in the world, who is probably 5 levels above Jake Paul and a weight division above him. I think it's irresponsible to let those two in a ring together in a proper boxing match. That's my view. It doesn't damage his bank balance, but if he earns $70 million for this, are we...
MMA legend Anderson Silva said people should respect Jake Paul for stepping into the ring with a seasoned former heavyweight champion, and for how he battled through adversity, highlighting Paul's growth and courage. Many fans and commentators felt that excessive clinching and rough tactics dampened the Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul fight, making it less engaging than expected. Instead of thrilling back-and-forth boxing, much of the early rounds became holding, grappling, and messy exchanges that slowed the pace and frustrated viewers. The referee even warned both fighters mid-bout to fight within the rules, as the action had stalled and wasn't what fans came to see. Critics noted that Paul's frequent grabs and Joshua's lack of constant aggression made the contest feel disjointed, with too many stops and starts instead of pure skillful boxing, reducing the overall entertainment value for many watching.
By the way, Anthony Joshua put on a show in Miami, taking on Jake Paul in a much-anticipated heavyweight bout, and in the end, it was AJ who delivered exactly what we wanted in the end. He stopped Paul in the 6th round to get the victory. I'm just seeing pictures online just now of Jake Paul with a broken jaw. The guy's crazy. He's sticking his tongue out. There's blood everywhere. He's playing up to the cameras. He's quite the showman. Our very own showman with us this morning out there in Miami is TalkSport's Gareth A. Davies. Good morning, Gareth.
Hi, Gareth.
Good morning, Shaban. Good morning, Tony. A very dramatic night here.
Yeah.
Ask away.
Gareth, I've got to ask you, because obviously he'll be criticised, I think, for sort of running around the ring in the first few rounds. But, boy, I've got to say, this Jake Paul is game as anybody I've seen.
He is very, very bold and very brash and very brave. And he did extraordinarily well to take Anthony Joshua 6 rounds tonight. Yes, he ran around, he was elusive, but then he clinched and I think he landed about 4 or 5 punches. Arguably, he might have won the first round and another round in there. So he did a brilliant job for his own resume, for his own career. And as you say, he's in hospital right now. He's posting the pictures already on Instagram. The scars of battle, the wounds of battle, the broken jaw, his teeth are rearranged a little bit. He gave it his all, but he wasn't good enough. What happened, we knew that was going to happen. The gulf in class and experience was extraordinary. And, I've just been with Anthony Joshua, and he said he was actually quite surprised about how elusive Jake was, and he just decided, you know what, I'm going to take my time here and chop.
What's your take on Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua? Do you see it as a fair fight, a clear mismatch, or a defining moment in combat sports? Share your thoughts in the comments below.